They say the American dream is built on hard work and opportunity. Nobody tells you it can also be built on lies, manipulation, and a bucket of cold water. I'm Maria, and this is the story of how I traded my nursing career in the Philippines for a washboard in Kentucky, and how I finally took my life back. This isn't just about one woman's journey from exploitation to freedom. It's about the thousands of immigrant women who come to America chasing love and opportunity, only to find themselves trapped in situations that look nothing like the promises made. If you've ever felt trapped, used, or told you should be grateful for your own suffering, this story is for you. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admit you were deceived, and then fight your way back to dignity. I was on my knees in the cramped laundry room scrubbing his mother's undergarments in a plastic bucket when the truth finally hit me. My hands were cracked and bleeding from 3 years of cold water and harsh soap. No washing machine, no dryer, just me, an ancient washboard, and endless piles of laundry that consumed my days. I'd left everything in Manila for this moment. My family who loved me, my career as a registered nurse in a busy hospital, my small apartment with a balcony where I grew orchids, my independence. "This is temporary," Jake had said 3 years ago at Manila Airport, holding both my hands and looking into my eyes with such conviction. "Just until we get on our feet. America has everything, baby. We'll build our dream together." The dream turned out to be a rusted trailer with mold in the corners, a mother-in-law who treated me like unpaid staff, and a husband who always had money for fishing trips but never for basic appliances. Tonight, everything was about to change. I met Jake 2 weeks after my engagement in Manila collapsed. I was 29, heartbroken, and questioning everything. My ex-fiancé's family had called me too career-focused and too independent for marriage. On a lonely night, I joined an international connection site, not really expecting anything. Jake's profile seemed genuine, a construction worker from Kentucky. He wrote thoughtful messages about wanting a real partnership. We video called for 6 months. He sent flowers to my hospital during my ICU night shifts. He talked about his home, his stable job, his dreams of a family. When he flew to Manila, I fell completely. He charmed my family, promised my father he'd treasure me, and proposed within 2 weeks. The wedding was small but beautiful. My mother cried happy tears. "America will be good for you," she whispered. 6 months later, I boarded a plane with a spousal visa, 2 suitcases, and a heart full of hope. The man waiting for me at the airport looked the same, but everything else was about to reveal itself as a carefully constructed lie. The first shock came when we pulled up to his home. A single-wide trailer, rusted and sagging, parked on his mother's property. Paint peeling, steps wobbling, nothing like the photos he'd shown me of our house. "It's temporary," he said quickly, seeing my face. That word would haunt me. "Just while we save up, maybe a year." Inside was worse. Stained carpet. A kitchen smaller than my bathroom in Manila. One tiny bedroom with a mattress on the floor. I tried to smile. I tried to be understanding. I'd been raised to be gracious, to make the best of situations. His mother, Patricia, appeared within an hour. She looked me up and down like merchandise. "Well, you're prettier than the pictures," she said. "Jake says you're a hard worker. Good. This family believes in earning your keep." Earning my keep. I was his wife, not an employee. But I didn't understand yet what those words really meant. Within a week, I was cooking for both households, cleaning 2 homes. The temporary situation began to feel permanent. The first month, I convinced myself this was adjustment, cultural differences. I cleaned obsessively, trying to make the trailer feel like home. I cooked traditional Filipino dishes and American meals learned from YouTube. I smiled when Patricia inspected my work and offered helpful suggestions. But when I mentioned applying for nursing jobs, Jake's demeanor changed completely. "Your English isn't good enough yet," he said, though I'd spoken English fluently my entire career. "You need to study for American certification first. We need you at home right now anyway." Patricia agreed enthusiastically. "Family takes care of family," she'd say, handing me another basket of her laundry. Not like American women who are too selfish to take care of their husbands. Soon I was waking at 5 a.m. to cook breakfast for Jake, then walking to Patricia's trailer to clean her home, washing everyone's clothes by hand because the washing machine is broken, and they'd fix it soon. Cooking dinner for both households, collapsing into bed at midnight only to repeat it all the next day. When I asked about the green card application Jake had promised to file, he'd get angry. "Do you know how ungrateful you sound? I brought you to America." 3 months in, I realized I was completely isolated. No car, Jake controlled the truck. No money, I had no access to bank accounts. No phone plan, I used Wi-Fi only. The nearest town was 12 miles away through winding country roads I'd never walked. I called my family less frequently. What could I tell them? That their daughter, the successful nurse, was now scrubbing floors and washing clothes by hand. That the American dream was a nightmare. The shame choked me. When I did call, I lied. "Everything is wonderful, Mama. America is beautiful. Jake is so good to me." My mother would smile through the screen, relieved. My father would nod approvingly, and I'd hang up feeling more alone than ever. I tried once to make friends at the small church Patricia attended, but she'd interrupt whenever I spoke to other women. "Maria needs to get home," she'd say. "So much work to do." The message was clear. I wasn't there to socialize. I was there to serve. One night, crying in the bathroom while Jake snored, I looked at myself in the cracked mirror. I barely recognized the woman staring back. Around the 1-year mark, I gathered courage to demand Jake file my green card application. We'd been married long enough. I had rights. I needed to work, to have my own money, to rebuild my career. His response terrified me. He didn't yell. He spoke quietly, which was somehow worse. "You really want to push this? Because if you make trouble, I can call immigration right now. Tell them this marriage isn't working out. You'll be deported before you can pack your bags." "But we're married," I whispered. "Doesn't matter. I'm the citizen. You're here on my sponsorship. If I withdraw it, you're gone. Is that what you want? To go back to the Philippines as a failure? What would your family think?" He'd found my pressure point. The shame of failure. The fear of disappointing my family. The terror of deportation. I didn't know enough about immigration law to know if he was telling the truth. So I stayed quiet, and I kept scrubbing floors. Patricia weaponized this too. Whenever I hesitated at a task, she'd say sweetly, "You know, Jake could always find an American wife who'd appreciate what he does for you." The threat was implicit. Behave or lose everything. 3 years into my personal prison, everything shattered on a random Tuesday. Patricia handed me her laundry basket without looking up from her phone. "Cold water only for my delicates," she commanded. I was about to nod obediently when I spotted Jake's phone on the kitchen counter, unlocked and glowing. A text notification from Bree with a heart emoji. My heart stopped. With trembling, water-wrinkled hands, I picked it up. The messages made me nauseous. Months of conversation with another woman. "Can't wait for tonight. She doesn't need to know. You deserve better than some foreign housemaid." My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the phone. But something made me keep looking. I scrolled up and found a group chat. Jake, Patricia, and Jake's brother. About me, about their plan. The messages were dated from before I'd even arrived in America. "Free labor beats hearing help. Keep her scared of deportation. Best investment I ever made. She works harder than any maid I could hire." They'd planned this, all of it. I wasn't his wife. I was imported labor they didn't have to pay. I didn't scream. I didn't confront them. I got strategic. For 3 days, I played the obedient wife while secretly planning. I photographed every message on Jake's phone. I emailed them to a secret account I created. I documented everything, the trailer conditions, my lack of access to money, the threats he'd made. Then I did what I should have done years ago. I researched. Using the trailer's Wi-Fi late at night while Jake slept, I learned about immigration fraud, spousal manipulation, and my actual rights under U.S. law. What I discovered changed everything. Jake had committed visa fraud. By bringing me here with no intention of filing my paperwork, by using threats of deportation to control me, by forcing me into unpaid labor. He'd broken federal law, and I had protections I never knew existed. I found legal aid organizations specializing in immigrant rights. I called a hotline and spoke to a lawyer named Sarah Chen who specialized in cases like mine. When I told her my story, she was silent for a long moment. Then, "This is human trafficking. We're going to help you." For the first time in 3 years, I felt something other than fear. I felt hope. I planned it carefully. Sarah connected me with a Filipino community organization 3 hours away offering emergency housing. I packed one small bag with documents, photos, and the few items that mattered: my nursing certificate, my passport, a photo of my family. On Friday morning, when Jake left for work and Patricia went to her activities, a volunteer named Linda picked me up at the end of the long driveway. I didn't look back at that trailer. I was done looking back. Jake called 32 times that day. I blocked him. Patricia left screaming voicemails calling me ungrateful and selfish. I blocked her too. For the first time in 3 years, the silence felt like freedom. With Sarah's help, I reported Jake to immigration authorities for fraud. His text messages, his own words about free labor and threatening deportation, destroyed any defense he could mount. I filed for a special visa for victims of trafficking and fraud. I also filed a civil lawsuit for 3 years of unpaid household labor. At minimum wage, they owed me over $87,000. The investigation revealed Jake had done this before. There was a woman from Thailand 5 years earlier. Authorities were searching for her, hoping she was safe somewhere. 2 years later, I stood in a federal courtroom as a judge granted my green card, not through Jake, but through my own petition as a survivor. The judge looked at me directly and said, "On behalf of the system that failed to protect you sooner, I apologize. Welcome to America, the real one." The civil case settled. I received $62,000. Jake and Patricia sold their property to pay it. Jake faced felony charges for immigration fraud. I attended one hearing and watched him refuse to make eye contact. Patricia cried and claimed she didn't know. The text messages proved otherwise. I moved to Los Angeles and worked with an agency helping foreign nurses get licensed. 8 months of studying, testing, and interviews. But I passed everything. Now I work as a registered nurse in a busy hospital. I make good money. I have my own apartment with a washing machine, a dryer, and a balcony where I'm growing orchids again. I'm dating Carlos, a teacher whose family immigrated from Mexico. He treats me as an equal. We cook together. We split chores. When I told him my story, he held me while I cried and said, "You're the strongest person I've ever met." Now I volunteer with the organization that saved me. I help other immigrant women trapped in similar situations. There are more than people realize. Women promised love but given exploitation, promised partnership but given servitude. Last month, I helped a young woman from Vietnam whose story mirrored mine. Same promises, same control tactics, same threats. When I told her she had rights and options, she cried with relief. "I thought I was alone," she whispered. "You're not," I told her, "and you're stronger than they want you to believe." I share my story publicly now, not for pity, but as both warning and hope. The American dream isn't supposed to be a bucket and a washboard. It's not servitude disguised as marriage. Real love doesn't isolate you. Real partnership doesn't exploit you. And gratitude should never be demanded while you suffer. If you're reading this and seeing yourself in my words, if you've been controlled, isolated, threatened, or forced to work without dignity, please hear this. You have worth. You have rights. You have the power to escape and rebuild. Jake promised me a better life. Instead, he tried to steal mine, but I took it back, and so can you. The hardest lesson I learned was this: love without respect is exploitation. Partnership without equality is servitude, and promises without action are just manipulation. For 3 years, I believed I should be grateful for my suffering, grateful for a roof over my head, even if it came with a mop in my hand, grateful for a marriage certificate, even if it was really an ownership contract, grateful for America, even when it looked nothing like what I'd been promised. But real gratitude exists only in relationships built on mutual respect, honesty, and dignity, where both people have agency, where contributions are valued, not exploited, where love means partnership, not ownership. The morals of this story. Promises mean nothing without actions. Jake promised everything and delivered exploitation. Judge people by what they do, not what they say. Isolation is always a red flag. When someone cuts you off from family, friends, work, and resources, it's not love, it's control. You always have more power than you think. Even when I felt completely trapped, I had rights and options I didn't know existed. Knowledge is power. Shame keeps victims silent. My shame about failing kept me trapped for years. There's no shame in being deceived, only in staying silent about deception. The system can help, but only if you reach out. Legal protections exist for immigrant victims, but you have to know they exist and be brave enough to use them. Rebuilding is possible. I went from scrubbing floors to saving lives as a nurse again. Your past doesn't define your future. Your worth isn't determined by others. Jake and Patricia tried to convince me I was worthless without them. They were wrong. So is anyone who tells you that. To the women still trapped in situations like mine, you deserve better. You deserve dignity. You deserve to dream your own dreams, not live inside someone else's lie. And when you're ready to leave, there are people waiting to help you. You just have to take the first step. The American dream isn't a bucket and a washboard. It's freedom, dignity, and the chance to define success on your own terms. That's the dream I'm living now, and it was worth fighting for.